We did
truly
it.
secret.
This is the first interview as a full band. Probably it may be the only interview we do as a full
Well, I
band.
feel
Who
so
knows?
honored. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
yeah.
Hey, everybody. So, I need to do an introduction for this interview with Birth Defects from Baltimore, D.C. It was recorded like well over a month ago, like 6 weeks ago. So much has changed. The world is better now. Everything's great. Yeah, we make some discussion about that. No, seriously. No, the one thing that has changed is I've actually have heard of Angine de Poitrine, which I was revealed to. They were revealed to me in this interview. But anyway, this is about the band Birth Defects releasing their sort of swan song record called Fictional Days. It's out today, basically, as you're seeing this. We talk all about the band, everybody's sort of involvement in the band. We focus on each member and talk about the history of them coming up. We talk about their record from last year, Deceiver Mirror, bands they're interested in, tons of influences, a noise rock list, hijinks, and everybody in this band seems to sell themselves short. That kept coming up as a thing. So that is the name of this video. Really happy to touch base with Sean to get this done. All the guys in the band, good dudes. It sounds like they may do a Japanese tour next year. Otherwise, your main way to get your dose of Birth Defects is to buy this new EP. There's also a new tape, limited to 100 copies, that you can get through their Bandcamp and Sounddome. Birth Defects, here's the long form interview. There's tons of video in here. There's a video at the very end of their new single, the cover of the Calm Sound Angels. They do a Sonic Youth cover, SSD. So, yeah, this new Fictional Days is a covers record, along with some outtakes from the Deceiver Mirror sessions, some unreleased stuff. And it's a really cool listen. Really enjoy it. Hope you enjoy the interview with Birth Defects. And this is my hip, by the way. This is literally my hip. You're about to announce this is a full-length record, right? Is this a
Mhm.
companion record to Deceiver Mirror, or is this just a bookend?
It's a
Tell some people about this record.
it's a bookend. I think so. Just to get people up to speed real quick,
Yeah.
we were a band from Rob. When did we start? 2013,
Yeah,
right?
it was the fall of 2013.
2013. And so we kind of worked our way through a couple of singles, a cassette, and then a sort of weird single box set thing. And then we broke up, and then we had a record that we had recorded, we just never finished. I kind of just wanted to do other things in my life. Rob had other things going on. But every so often Rob would say, "Hey, we should finish this." We finally got around to finishing it. So when we were going through, because we wanted somebody else to mix it, and that record, we wanted Steve Albini to mix it, and he was supposed to, and unfortunately he passed away. But we got Matthew Barnhart to mix it. But before that, we were working with Nick Skrobitz of Multicult. He had recorded the record, and we had actually were going through tracks so we were doing some more overdubs, trying to kind of polish up the record a little bit. And we found a song that I don't even remember us even writing it. So I'll let Rob take this because I don't even remember.
I do remember writing it after hearing it, but I totally had forgotten about the song for some reason. I think it's just because when we were active and putting that record together, we had decided not to include it. So it just disappeared from my memory because I never had a copy of it. It's
Hmm.
not one of the songs we took with us out of the studio when we finished those sessions back in what, 2017,
Yeah.
2018, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
remember when we were listening to it, it was crazy. It was like all of us were just like, wait, where'd that come from? What is that?
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Ian, you were there when we found the song with Nick,
Yeah.
and we're all just like, this sounds really rad, but we don't remember doing it.
Yeah, and at that point we had pretty much had that record sequence, the Deceiver Mirror record, sequenced even before we decided to finish it. That way, and I think we were really happy with that sequencing. And there was a moment where Rob was like, "Well, we could fit this on the record," but I had kind of said, "Well, I just we lived with this sequence so long. I really liked how the record, the Deceiver Mirror record, like was flowing with the sequencing, and so." But we were like, "Well, it's a strong song. We don't,
And which
like."
track is this on the record?
That's the first song, Deceiver.
Oh, to see.
So
Okay.
And it's going
yeah,
to be
so
confusing because the
yeah,
song
it's
is
gonna be
called Deceiver. It's the title track, but we didn't put it on the album.
Oh, that's like
yeah, and
my favorite thing. I love when
Hell
bands
yeah.
do that. That's great.
yeah,
It
I
just
kind of did
confuses
that
people for
I
no
did that
reason.
Exactly, yeah.
purposely. Yeah, I did that purposely too because I like you. I kind of like that. But we listened to it, and Ian, Rob, and myself, we were like, well, this is really good. I just don't know where this would fit. There was some scratch vocals on it, but it was mostly completed. I don't even know, Rob and Ian, correct
We
me if I'm wrong, we did any more overdubs on that
no,
song? I
we
think
did
we
no
kind of left it
overdubs.
as is. Yeah.
No overdubs. That
Yeah.
all the instrumentation was done as far as I was concerned when I heard it. Like noise tracks were in there and everything. So I didn't want to touch it the
Oh,
instrument
leave
wise,
well
but
enough
Sean
alone.
was not happy with the vocal take, so
Yeah,
we ended up
I didn't
redoing
even
that.
remember what I was singing about. And I was kind of like, well, okay, so I kind of did one of those things where I wrote the lyrics very quickly while we were doing other sort of overdubs and stuff. And then at the tail end of that session, I think is when I tracked vocals and I did it in one take, just like we did with Deceiver Mirror, which all of those vocal tracks, I think maybe except for one or two are like all one take. And Birth Defects, we were mostly a one take, two take kind of band. There was only like one song on Deceiver Mirror that I think we had to do some multiple takes of, but for the most part, I think we nailed everything in like one or two takes. And so we kept that trend going with this song. But yeah, so we found that song and then we were kind of like, well, like what are we gonna do with it? Like we can't do, I didn't want to do a digital single. We had a couple of different versions of songs lying around, and there was a couple of tracks that saw some light of day on like some rando compilations that only had like 20 copies, that kind of thing. So we were like, well, we have all of that, but that's still not enough. And I didn't want to do like a 10-inch. I think 10 inches are just not my thing for the most part.
Tough to
And I
do,
didn't
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to do like an EP, so I kind of was like, well, okay, I guess maybe what we could do, Rob and I had kind of messed around with a couple of covers early on in Burt Defect's life. One of them being I Hate Myself and Want to Die by Nirvana, but the other one was Sonic Youth Sunday. And so I kind of said to Rob, what if we record those and then we pick a couple of other songs and kind of round this thing out? And then Rob was like, well, let's get Jay Robbins to record it. And yeah, we did that summer of 2024, right, guys? June
Yeah.
of 2024,
Yep.
I think.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it's two
So, and
different
then,
sessions and years apart, but it doesn't sound, completely
yeah,
different. But there is a difference that I heard today when I was listening to it again. Just, maybe a little bit sludgier, a little bit rougher, I think. I mean, a friend of mine worked
well,
with
and
Jay
that's
Robbins too.
really due to the people that were involved because then the other once we decided that we were like, well, I guess we need to like get a band together because we were gonna originally with Deceiver Mirror, we were gonna just like do the overdubs, get it mixed at Electrical Audio and mastered, and then either put out the record ourselves or maybe get somebody to do it and then call it a day. But then we were like, okay, well, I guess if we're gonna do this thing, we have to put a band together. And Joey was in a couple of the sessions for Deceiver Mirror.
Hmm.
Joey, I guess I'll let you kind of take over where you sort of fit in here.
Okay. Well, okay. So I guess my involvement with this started when I met Rob at a show at Auto Bar. We both went to go see Subhumans UK. Had a hey cool shirt exchange, and then eventually I ended up starting another band with Rob. And then he told me, hey, by the way, I think we might be reviving Birth Defects. Would you be interested in like recording some overdub stuff? And I was like, yeah, that would rule. So also something that was wild to me is I actually hadn't heard Birth Defects when they were active originally, and Rob gave me the 7 inches, and I heard, and I was like, how the fuck did I not hear this band before? So yeah, I was thrilled when they asked me to do it. And so then, yeah, I guess there was just the talk, and we weren't really sure exactly what was going to happen. And then eventually, we got a date for the studio. Uh, sorry, no, for okay. First overdubs was at with Nick Strobitz, and that was just they just brought me in, and I brought a bunch of shit, my Moog, a mixer, some like sheet metal,
Yeah, so that's
some
sidebar. Like, let's talk a little bit about that
yeah,
because people don't understand. If you see this, if you see birth defects, which I guess might not happen anytime soon, but that's the fun wrinkles. It's a massive sound. A big band is like very loud, but then you're over there with, I guess we'll call you percussionist in loosely scrap metal, all kinds of noisemakers, synthesizer. What else? I mean, you're adding the je ne sais quoi, the sort
it's
of
like textures.
the odd bits that make this even more
Yeah.
interesting.
So something I think, well, I like lots of different types of noise, but I think what makes really good like power electronics or like even really good like noise rock is when you have a solid core,
Mm.
right? Of like if we're talking power electronics, right? Like a solid like pulse, and then there's other shit built around it, right? So I that's kind of my approach with what I was doing. Birth Effects was the rest of these guys were laying down something that was solid that you could hold on to, and I'm just there to add some texture
Yeah.
to the rest of it to add a little unpredictability.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, and
it's
I think that's Joey's almost underselling themselves a little bit because I think when Rob and I brought Joey in and Rob had asked Joey, one of the things that Rob and I really wanted to do with Birth Defects, and it's pretty apparent on our second 7 inch. If anybody were to listen to that and compare it to even Deceiver Mirror or this record or even the first 7 inch, there is a sort of it's almost like we were a different band for a moment and not from a sort of a musical perspective. But to Joey's point, like texture wise, or just it was way more abrasive. And Rob and I were coming at it from the angle of like we were really into listening to bands like the very first Black Dice 7 inch, which is totally different from their other output. Um, we were super into again, we covered them later on in this record that we're talking about, but the New Flesh, really just super abrasive, like bands coming at it more from a harsh noise perspective as opposed to like noise rock, right?
yeah.
And Rob and I were really interested, like Drunks with Guns or something like that, and doing something just super abrasive. So we ended up working with this guy, Sean Stukis. That name may not be familiar to most people, but there was a certain point in time, there was a certain band that was relatively big called Perfect Pussy. This band
Mm,
was a hype
yes.
band on
Yeah,
the
they actually come from this area originally, I believe, if I'm
Syracuse,
correct.
I think, right? Something
Syracuse,
was,
yeah,
yeah.
which is close. Yeah.
And yeah, they were sort of and this is not really disparaging on Sean, but they were sort of this hype band on Pitchfork. And like, I thought they were like, whatever, interesting-ish as a band, but it was really Sean that was the most interesting part of that band because he used a noise rig. Like he was their noise guy. And
Yeah.
Rob and I thought that was the most interesting part of that band. And we had approached Sean and we were like, here's demos of stuff we're doing. Would you want to record this? And he was like, come up to Brooklyn. We'll record it in my practice space. And it was literally like a closet almost. And it was the most claustrophobic recording I've ever done. And it
Sounds like
was
a
the
Brooklyn
most,
practice space. Yeah.
yeah, it was like physically and mentally
Yeah.
exhausting. And just like all of our records, we did everything pretty much in one-ish take. And it was the most sort of physical experience I've had recording a record. So Rob and I, we were like, well, this should be like the rest of our output. it didn't end up being that way. But when we brought sort of
So those
Joey,
recordings are somewhere what'd you do with those recordings?
Oh,
Those are
those are
just,
out.
so
Those are out.
yeah,
oh, that's
yeah,
part of it.
So the
yeah, it's
second
part of
7 inches got Demands and Hanshin.
Oh,
Those
okay.
are the ones we
Which
were,
I
and
have.
then
Okay.
yeah, and the on the Dissimulate box set we released the B-sides of Youth and Crawl.
is Joey busting out the.
Oh, here we go. We got
Oh
to
yeah,
show
this is
Yeah,
something.
there's the compilation. Yeah.
Yeah, we did a at our final show. Joey put together to kind of gather both of our 7 inches in one little package, and it's called "Fuck You, Baltimore."
Ouch.
And
Sorry.
but but so so when we brought Joey in, it kind of brought that sort of back into the fold a little bit. Obviously, these recordings were done a little bit differently, but Joey, I think, reinvigorated kind of what Rob and I envisioned the band to maybe become. And so Joey was super integral in like how, especially the Fictional Days record sounds, but even Deceiver Mirror wouldn't sound the way that it sounds without Joey. So I think Joey too, it's a long-winded way of saying I think you undersold yourself a little bit because that was sort of the flashpoint for Rob and I to go, okay, well, we've got Joey, let's gather some more troops. So this is where Ian comes in. Ian was already sort of like he was our original bass player. Ian, I'll let you kind of take over.
Yeah, so I was the I don't think I can claim founding bass player because you guys had the band and had stuff on Bandcamp, but yeah, when the band first got together, I joined as a bass player, and in 2014, I guess it was, I had to quit. Work was just too crazy, couldn't commit to touring, didn't think it was fair to the band to be like, "Oh, sorry guys, I can't do it." So I was out of the picture for years and years and years. Um, then for the Deceiver Mirror sessions, they had me come back to record a few bass tracks. It was what Youth and God,
Throne, I believe.
Throne, yeah, yeah. So it was the first and last on the record. So it was kind of like a neat. I got to book in the band like the way I kind of did in real life. Uh, and then of course when when this follow-up was starting to come together, they called me and I was like, yeah, of course, like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that band
And
came together like so fast. We did one practice session with Brett,
oh yeah.
one, like we did maybe
Yeah.
two or
I think we
three
had like
practices
four
before the
total.
studio. Yeah,
Yeah, it was like four total over like a 4 month period. Like because it was
yeah,
just so hard to get people's schedules aligned.
right.
We ended up doing one practice a month basically.
I
And
think we
that
did.
was the other thing. I think Ian, you're also selling yourself short because Ian is super integral to especially like a song like Youth. Um, there's a certain kind of musicality that Ian brought to the band that, and this is no offense to any other bass player we've had, that we just never found with anybody else but Ian. And so when we were able to bring Ian back, that was the other thing that kind of reinvigorated Rob and I because we were like, even during those Deceiver Mirror overdub sessions, even before we had planned to kind of put a band together, it felt natural to be in the studio with Ian and to be like working on overdubs and kind of recrafting some of the things that we were doing. And I remember just looking at Rob and Ian and being like, oh, this brings me back to like 2014. This is, and it's all three of us being in this band and kind of, I know Ian said he's not a founding member, but he kind of is because there was a lot of things that we were doing that without Ian, it just wouldn't be the same band even after Ian left. So to have Ian come back meant a lot to Rob and I, and we couldn't have done, we really probably couldn't have done what we're doing now without Ian and Joe and everybody here, for sure.
I just want to interject and say something that Ian really brought that I appreciate, and I mean this in the best possible way. One of the worst bass tones I've ever fucking heard.
Hell
Like
yeah.
I mean that in the best, like it's perfect. It is just like it sounds like fucking hell. It's gnarly as fuck. And that is I feel as if a lot of people are afraid to achieve those kinds of tones.
They're cowards.
That's right.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
funny though because like Sean brings up the musicality stuff. I was coming out of being in like pop bands. I was in kind of a goth band with my wife, but like I was writing a lot of the different parts. So it was, I just came into this band and didn't want to think that much about the songs. So like I would just say like, Rob, what are you doing? And then I could just focus on the bass and really build it around whatever Rob was doing. A lot of
Well,
bass
that's
players really just want to follow whatever the chords are, root note, root note,
yeah.
root note. And yeah, we had that. That was fine. We
Yeah,
can,
I always really enjoyed that about your bass playing, Ian, was that you found ways to like write cool complementary riffs.
Yeah.
Youth is
we
one of
had
the
fun
best.
interplay.
Yes, I feel like the second half of Youth is a really good example, like of where we just go in opposite directions as we're playing. Like it just creates these cool dissonances as you're hearing the riffs play over each other. I really liked
Yeah,
it.
that one chord in the bridge in Youth, I still don't know what we did, but I love it.
It works as long
Yeah.
as it sounds good. It works. I
That's
don't need
one
to
of
know the
those
music theory behind it.
Yeah.
the sneaky things that you don't really you hear it, but you don't really focus in on it. But there's like something interesting happening that's sort of hard to pinpoint. And it's usually because somebody's doing something counterpoint to what's happening in the overall melody. And like sometimes those beautiful things happen recording wise. It's like I don't know why that sounded so amazing together, but it just does. Let's not touch it. And that's
Hmm.
kind
That
of the cool
for
thing
me
about
that
what.
was or sorry,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
me that's Take on the new record. That was one that
Mm.
I don't think we were going to release that. Maybe it got put out on maybe a comp, but
Yeah,
I
our
felt
friend
like
Denny Bowen put it out on a comp that we didn't know about. Shout out to Denny Bowen
Unauthorized release.
Ooh, bootleg.
of Room Runner, and I think Denny, he does
Is there a
sound
cease and
for.
desist letter out there for that?
No, we love
Our
Denny, and
lawyers
he,
are working right
yeah,
now.
right,
Yeah,
right,
okay.
but
Paying overtime.
Once we're done getting
but
sued by Flipper,
yeah, right. We're about to get sued by Flipper. So once that's over, then we can,
It's okay. Yeah.
deal with Denny's. Um, but yeah, so then Ian, we kind of had Joey and Ian, and then Matt, who was kind of he came into Birth Defects towards the tail end of what we were doing. We had a couple of drummers that we had gone through, it just didn't work out, just timing and life factors. So we ended up asking Matt to join the band through a friend of ours. And so Matt actually played this was 2019, the last two Birth Defect shows.
Yep, last two shows.
Um, and then so Matt, if you kind of want to talk about yourself and how you kind of fit
Of
into all
course I
this.
do. Uh yeah. Guess we met in 2019 from a mutual friend. And it was a good opportunity for me because I was just kind of newer in town. But my thing was is they really had like great drummers before. And drummers that I feel were like very different from than me. I know Brett and all these the drummers before were people, and I've heard from other people that they did things like covers and just really knew how to play drums. And I just came up by it's just like being in bands. I never practiced by myself. I never did anything. That's just how I learned everything. So it was like fucking daunting. Um, but I decided, not to chicken out, and I just learned the songs to the best of, just tried to get as close as I could. There's shit that I just like couldn't do.
Hmm.
Um, but and like my playing is like way more like ragged and fucking, you know, a little all over the place, which I'm fine with. I think it works with this. Um, yeah, it was fun. I mean, I think one thing I do well is like when I'll be fucking nervous the whole time, but when I get in the seat, something kind of like flips on, and you know, and then those songs are fucking fun to play. And I got no problem with like going for it and being a weirdo. So yeah, and the new stuff, I honestly I don't have a whole lot to do with those things. We on the I did some backing vocals
Yeah, yeah, it's
on some of the stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's about it.
You're
Well, I will
underselling
say,
yourself a
like,
little bit, Matt. You're
yeah,
underselling your
yeah,
drumming.
That's the theme
yeah.
here, it seems
And
like.
and you're underselling like how much of a workhorse you are because Matt and I would get together and just do extra practices, just the two of us, because he wanted to make sure he was like nailing it to the best of his ability.
Very
And I remember we
nervous.
reworked Throne like for weeks. And I thought the newer like fill that you came up with super cool. Unfortunately, we never played that one live. I really wanted to, but it would have been a really good showcase of like
We
all
did
the
play
effort
it
you put
live.
in.
We
We
did
Yeah,
did.
once,
Did we play
yeah,
once.
Throne? When?
Yeah.
Yeah, at
Rhizome, right?
Rhizome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I guess I was thinking of the tour. So that was like
Yeah,
the
that
month
was the only time
before.
we played it though, was at Rhizome.
That's it.
Okay.
One and done for this configuration. Or maybe not. I don't know. But
But
yeah,
no, I think Matt, you are selling yourself short because the one thing that Rob and I always talk about is we were very lucky with drummers from Eric, from Brett, um,
Steven.
from Steven from Clean Girls, and then Matt. And it was like when we found Matt, Matt, he has a tendency to sell himself short. But I remember those first couple of practices and being like, oh, this is the guy, and so the the tail end of 2019, unfortunately, the band kind of fell apart. But the idea was that we were going to release what became Deceiver Mirror and then work with Matt to get new recordings. And I was really excited about what was to come because the thing that was great about Matt was we needed somebody that was stable and that's somebody that
That's key.
like
I got that.
could that somebody that like actually could like kind of was sort of like, and I mean this as a total compliment, was like super level-headed. There was a lot of sort of turmoil in the band, and I
Yeah.
knew that Matt would be sort of good to kind of level some of that turmoil. And unfortunately, it just became too much to bear. But when we were like configuring what is Fictional Days, I wanted Matt to play on some stuff, but it just didn't work out. But Matt, you had said, well, how about what covers are you doing? And I said, well, we're doing a Sonic Youth cover and an SSD cover. And you and me, the first one you jumped on, I was surprised was the Sonic Youth cover. That was the one that you were like, I want to do vocals on that, as opposed like the SSD one you came to later, but Sonic Youth, you
Yeah.
were like that was the first one you picked.
I think I wanted to play drums on that. And then I
So
was
you picked
like,
the song, Matt, or that was the
no.
song that was picked out, and you
It
were like,
was, and I think I picked that one. And then I was just like, I don't want to, how my brain works. It's like, I knew it would be a time crunch and just going in there, I've recorded with Jay Robbins before. And to me, it's a big fucking deal. I've seen Jawbox and like 94. It's like, I
yeah,
love the
legend.
records. And for me, it just wasn't enough time for me to prepare and uh, do it how I wanted to do it. So I was just like, I'm gonna pass on that. I can come in and like scream some shit. We can do
Which
that,
he did.
which I
And
did.
it's funny because um the way that I actually like when he said, well, how about I do backing vocals? There is a band, and Joey, you may remember who did it. It's a Mysterious Guy hardcore band, but they covered Death Valley 69.
Oh, it's called Ritual.
Um
Yeah.
Cult
Yeah.
Ritual. Okay.
Yeah, it's
So Cult
the
Ritual,
third 7 inch. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So Cult Ritual covers now, just for the people that are watching that have no idea what Mysterious Guy Hardcore is. In
Uh-oh.
the late 2000s to early 2010s, there was this sort of, it's not even a micro scene. It was actually fairly big. It was a good amount of hardcore bands that decided we're not going to have any social media. This was even prior to anti-social media. We're not going to have any social media. There's not really going to be any way to contact us, but we're just going to put out records and we're going to tour. And the style of hardcore was sort of mixing, again, Joey, you are probably better versed at describing this than I am, but like more like noise or power electronics ish, um that kind of stuff, right? And then really pulling from really super obscure American hardcore stuff that
Right.
people just weren't talking about at the
It
time.
was
Um,
yeah. What I feel is that the term for that, at least I've heard in like recent years is like mutant hardcore. It's
Sure.
how people
Yeah.
describe it. Bands like Void, United Mutation. Um, I don't know if Seed would really count, but just like weird, noisy, like hyper aggressive
Maybe like
hardcore.
Vile. Would that Vile 12-inch
Vile,
count?
yes, but I feel that we're not supposed to talk about Vile.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
We don't have
But
to.
but I think like those so but to Joey's point, like those bands, they were referencing like these really sort of, and they weren't super obscure bands, but just people weren't really sort of referencing them like these bands were. And they were, so there's this band called Ritual that covered Death Valley 69. And I was that was to me, that's actually one of the better Cult Ritual songs, even though it's a cover. And I had told Thurston that we were going to cover Sunday. And I had mentioned, I was like, by the way, Thurston, have you ever heard of this band Cult Ritual? They covered Death Valley 69. And he this was kind of after we finished our interview, and he immediately was like, no, who is this band? I need to know who this band is. So I think I turned him on to the Cult Ritual Death Valley 69 cover. But
It's a
that
good song.
was super influential of being like, well, if Matt's gonna be a part of this, and Matt is also a hardcore vocalist, let's have him do, early 80s hardcore, almost, SSD style vocals, which obviously we cover SSD later on this record.
Yeah.
And Matt completely nailed it. And it adds to that the Sonic Youth song. Rob and I really like that song, but with
Hey, where did
Matt's
that? What was that pick
vocals,
from? You just always liked the song? Felt like
Rob
it
Sean
suited the
I don't
picked.
know,
band.
Rob, like we both kind of like that song. That was kind of
We
like one of
do,
those.
yeah. But it
To
was
keep
definitely
picking
you were the one
away.
who Sean's definitely one who brought it up first because we played
Yeah,
it for Mobtown Studios. Mobtown Studios in Baltimore used to do what did they call it?
like
Uh
micro shows. It was,
micro something. Yeah.
yeah, it's like almost like unplugged, but not really.
Yeah, basically like in one of the recording booths, which was the size of basically this studio we recorded in with Sean Stukas. Like his tiny little room, we had to bring in practice amps, so no like full stacks like we were used to, and we did this little like live set that he recorded. And one of the songs that we picked was Sunday, and it was picked that day. We practiced before recording this thing at our practice space, and Sean was like, "Let's just do Sundays. Like, I want to try it." And I had already learned how to play it. Brett was filling in for drums at the time. He already knew how to play it. So we just started playing it, and we thought it sounded good, and so we just impromptu did that. Sean had always wanted to do it live, so that felt like a good time to do it.
And
And
I'd
I
always
think
kind of
like it
like
stuck
that.
with
That was
us.
Yeah, that was one of those. I think A Thousand Leaves is one of those Sonic Youth records, and I think Jake, I don't know, you may agree with me on this, that just is kind of overlooked still. I mean, I think
Well, it's the mid
weird.
mid to late 90s. They've
Yeah,
had their sort of like hit years or their bigger years, and it was sort of a come down in a way. And if thinking about if we know what you guys sound like, you'd think you'd pick something earlier or whatever, Bad Moon Rising, Evolve, but no, you guys go with the late 90s pick.
Maybe we should have
97.
covered an SSD song from How We Rock instead.
kind of the hair metal era of SSD.
Yeah,
That would have been
uncharacteristic.
something.
Monday comes along again, a perfect day for a quiet friend. You will set it free. Sunday comes along again, a perfect day for a quiet friend. You will set it free. In the morning, rub your face. Everybody says it's another phase, and now it's come to me.
But no, I really like that sort of era of Sonic Youth because, as you probably are aware, Dom, that like that's when they started SYR, and there was those series of SYR records. And that was to me, that was them being their most sort of ambitious, experimental wise. So we had that song kind of in our canon, and then we picked so once we had Matt on board, we kind of Brett decided, well, or we
I'd
asked
say that
Brett
leaves
to
Jake, the second
Jake. So
guitarist,
Jake
right?
Jake comes in a little bit. So we recorded the covers, but let's go to where we're like, okay, we recorded this record, Deceiver Mirror. We're about to put out. The label asked us like, well, are you guys gonna play shows? And I said, well, and I really didn't plan on it. And he's like, our the label guy was like, Chris X was like, hey, I would really like for you to play shows. Could you play at least one? And I was like, well, we need a second guitar player. So Jake has been a very long time friend of mine, and he was in some very, very great bands, Alcyon Blue and Screen Vinyl Image. Now, for some of the people here that are deep into their shoegaze lore, especially the early to mid 2000s, I'm going to embarrass Jake a little bit here. Jake is a legend. It was an absolute. When I asked Jake, it was funny because we were seeing Ceremony East Coast. Now, you may have heard of Ceremony, the hardcore band, but there's a Ceremony from the East Coast, and they're great. They're this super abrasive, now a drummer and a bass player. Shoegaze isn't the right word for them. They almost sound like carp or something. But they were kind of more of a shoegaze band. And Jake comes from that world. Jake was in bands with people from A Place to Bury Strangers. I know that Jake is will not want to talk much about that, but he's a legend. And I had the honor of putting out some Screen Vinyl Image recordings with my old label Fan Death and my other label Accidental Guest. And Jake and I have always been good friends. And so we were actually at Rhizome seeing Ceremony, and we were just hanging out. And I told Jake what was going on, and I said, Jake, would you be interested in doing second guitar for this band? Just because at that point, so Jake, I'll let you take it because you weren't really playing guitar at that point in time.
Yeah, I've been like fully immersed in synthesizers and electronic music, so I hadn't played guitar much for probably 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Other than just like in my basement, like with by myself recording stuff. But yeah, Sean brought it up, and I was like, it felt, I don't know, it felt like right. And then he sent me the SoundCloud, the secret SoundCloud link with all the tracks, and I listened to it, and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And then I tried to learn all the parts, and then I sat down with Rob and realized that I didn't learn anything right. So
And
Yeah, you get to involve other people. Sometimes you got to welcome in that,
that's all right.
you're
well,
going to do it their way.
I mean, I think Jake, you're again also selling yourself short because Jake, there is when you saw us live, Dom, we did not sound like that previously before this lineup. There is a certain power that Jake brings to the band that we couldn't achieve with anybody else but Jake. And there is a certain dynamic that Rob and him have together where, and I'm sure, Rob, you can explain this better than I could, but when you guys locked in, it was like as if you guys had been playing together for years. It was pretty
Yeah.
remarkable to see,
Yeah.
Plus, he was really photogenic.
And that's what counts.
At least in Delaware.
In Delaware,
Yeah,
definitely.
He's a
100+.
Delaware
Yeah.
10.
Yeah, there was a guy that only took photos that literally took like 50 photos of Jake and nobody else in the band.
Everyone
Interesting.
else got
Okay.
like one
There's like
photo.
a photo where you see like Rob's arm, and that's it.
I just happened to be in some back corner. Now,
Right.
playing with Jake was really cool. What I liked too was like when he came with, I thought I'd learned the songs and he showed me what he was playing. It wasn't quite what I was playing, but it was close enough. But I was like, you know what? Like, you don't have to just do what I'm doing. And he came up with really cool complementary parts in these like handful of practices that we had before getting ready to do this tour, right? Like we didn't have more than a half dozen practices for the tour, I think, something like that.
Yeah,
It was
Oh,
maybe
just
wow.
eight
very
at
like
most.
as a full band.
Yeah.
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 That says a
So
lot because there's a lot of you and there's a big setup there, you know?
yeah, and so Jake, like, I really liked what he came up with for Trapped, adding all of these cool, like, shoegazy, noisy undertones. Because I'm doing like a clean guitar thing that's really fast, and it just complements so well. And he would just come up with cool parts, like on the fly, and it was really easy to work with Jake. It's just, like it just the rapport was like so felt so natural.
Yeah,
Everything real.
Rob and I would do hangouts on like video hangouts because he's up in Baltimore and I'm down here close to DC, and we would
Yeah,
just sort of like hang out for like an hour and a half or 2 hours and just like with our guitars and be like, all right, well, what if you do this and I do this? And but I knew Rob too from Rob also played in a sort of like a gothy gaze band called the Holy Circle with Terrence from Locrian and his wife Erica, and so I like, and with that, like, I kind of knew like Rob's sound and sort of like how to kind of play off of that, and like sort of plug a tone into like his massive wall of amps.
But no, it
yeah.
was getting Jake in the band was a honor, I think, for Rob and I didn't think Jake would actually do it because, you know, like Jake said, he hadn't played guitar really regularly for a while. And so, when we did the tour together and it all clicked. And, so what we did do, even though Jake isn't on this record, the very last song we played as a band in America was the Sonic Youth cover. So when we did our final show, that was really important for me to get Jake. We just didn't when we were working with Jay at the time, it was we just kind of I did it's not even that I never thought to ask Jake. I didn't think Jake would actually say yes because for those that know about Screen Vinyl Image and Alcyon Blue, those are legendary bands. If you're into shoegaze in the early 2000s, those were the bands. And I know I'm embarrassing Jake, but it's true because there are people that are referencing those bands now, young kids that are referencing those bands now. There are certain people that are putting out certain compilations that are referencing those bands now. And it kind of seems like they're finally going to get their due. So for me and Rob, it was like it was just would be amazing if Jake joined the band, and he did. And so I was like, well, he wasn't on this recording, but we decided at our very last show we would play this Sonic Youth song, and Jake got to play on that, but um, so with Fictional Days though, going back to that,
Yeah,
we
let's
had
There's one
properly
cover.
yeah,
introduce that, by the way.
Yeah.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
guys released Deceiver Mirror last year. I want to
yeah,
step back. That record came
yeah,
out. You have these other sessions that you recorded with Jay Robbins in 2024. So there
yep,
are a few tracks from 7 Inches, it sounds like. Looks like from what I
Yep.
saw. A few, one outtake, one different version from the album. And then these,
yeah,
four covers?
Five covers.
five.
Five
There's one
covers.
we haven't talked about yet.
That's not, oh, well, I want to ask you about the Comsat Angels because that's a
Yeah,
band,
that's what I'm talking about.
yeah, that's a band that never gets discussed. I'm not sure why. I'm a moderate fan. I'm not going to say I'm a huge fan, but I have the one record with Independence Day on. I can't think of it, and I have a CD of the first record, which is where the track that you took, the track that you took that you covered is from. And yeah, I'm just curious about where the Comsat Angels cover came from,
That
Sean, you've got to
was
start with that.
yeah,
because that was the most
yeah.
interesting thing to me about looking at this set of music. I'm like, all of it seems to track with what I know about you guys, and then I see that, and I was like, interesting.
I think the
Yeah,
Comsat Angels are, it's funny. It's like they were one of those bands that a friend of mine got me into. And I'd never heard of them before, but they are one of those bands where if you hear them at the right place and the right time, they stick with you. And it particularly this record that Postcard is from,
Mhm.
Waiting on a Miracle. Um, and that record from start to finish, there's no real record that sounds like that, particularly in like the post-punk world, which I guess is what you may want to categorize them as. But they're very angular, very,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Especially that record. Um, Stuff like Total War or On the Beach, really just angular songs for like I think that record came out what, 81,
I think it
82,
was
some
80 or
or
yeah, something like that.
something like that,
English.
right?
It
You
seemed a
know,
little out of step from what was happening there in some ways.
yeah, I mean, even with like bands like the Chameleons, right, where the Chameleons are almost comparatively way more straightsforward. Comsats are like this, like we're gonna make you work for like getting to the meat and potatoes of
Yeah.
the song, which I really appreciated. But there's this one song called Postcard that I always thought was just super intense, emotionally, lyrically, and musically, and I was like, if we're gonna do something different, let's really kind of go all in. And I Rob and I, this is a fun fact that I don't even think anybody else in the band here really knows except for Rob and I. We never tried it. I remember we started Birth Defects. I had this crazy idea that we would cover, Dom, you won't believe this, a heat wave song.
I
Yeah.
remember that. I remember that.
We
Wasn't
were
I
gonna
thought
cover
Comsat Angels was part of that discussion, wasn't it?
we were we
Jumping
were
ahead.
gonna try to
I think Ian's
do
right.
Yeah, we were gonna try to do this song, this sort of obscure Heatwave song called Star of the Story. This very just like minimal R&B funk song that we were going to like make just crazy noisy. We were just going to like it was going to sound like Drunks with Guns or something. If you could imagine like that. And we never got to it because it was just this really maniacal idea I had. But I think to Ian's point, that planted the seeds of what is this Comsat Angels cover. It's a little more in the wheelhouse that I think we're all used to. But if you like to what you were saying, Tom, that's the one that's like the weird one because
Yeah.
it's like everything else sort of makes sense. Clearly, we don't hide away from the Nirvana influence. Like we don't. I think I showed Joey. We got speaking of the vinyl community,
Ah.
we got a very bad interview from somebody in the vinyl community. I noticed
Oh,
recently. It was
Is it
great. It was like this band, it's just
a bad
Nirvana
review, you mean?
demos. What's that?
Like a bad review, you mean?
Oh, it was yeah. I mean, Joey watched. It was like these four dudes,
for
just like
for Gen Xers.
yeah, just trashing the record. It was
Oh, I
awesome.
gotta
I was
see
like,
this. Send that
But
to
okay,
me.
there was the one guy who's like, I think this is really neat, and the other guys are like,
Neat. He said
Nirvana
neat.
was the last good rock band.
We are here this time to review an album that Richard suggested from a band called Birth Defects or some shit.
yeah,
Okay.
like well, I
That-
just
it's
makes
just
me
like a
want to
half
listen to
hour of that.
Nirvana. That it was like I was like, this is great. Like that, if we're gonna get trashed, like I want those people to like trash us.
Did
But
they
we
say
don't
anything
shy.
interesting that you were like, huh, interesting
Not
point?
really. I don't know, Joey. You watched it. Like, I don't think it was anything interesting. I mean, the guy that liked it, I think he likes a little more weird stuff. And I think he tried really hard to get them to understand where we were coming from. They had no idea what our reference points actually were. They couldn't fathom anything else but Nirvana. Right? So, like, if you
That was
care about
the only-
experimental music or noise music, you could totally pinpoint what we were trying to do outside of Nirvana, but they couldn't. And like, oh, look, I know, I get it, I understand it. But Rob and I, we never shied away from any of those influences. So that's why we cover Nirvana. But we cover Comsat Angels, which I think just it really kind of it made us sort of expand our sort of vocabulary.
This cloud shows only mythical hours. These books show only fictional days. One system is I don't think you're listening. I don't think you're listening. I don't think you're listening. I think I'll tell you again. This clock shows only mythical hours.
we also did what I'm super proud of, and a band that's really important to Rob and I and Joey, I think too, is the New Flesh. There's this band from Baltimore
Yeah, them
called
I
the
don't
New
know at
Flesh
all.
that nobody really does, and that was part of their doing. But they were in the early 2000s
That's more of the
doing
mysterious stuff, I guess.
they were super, yeah, in their own way, they were super
Yeah.
mysterious, but they were doing things that nobody else was doing in the early 2000s. They were referencing certain bands, particular really wild mutant noise rock bands that nobody else was like really referencing. And I had the privilege, or maybe it was not a privilege, to put out a couple of their records. And why I say that is they would trade all of their records or sell all their records to stay on people's floors, and so they would tour for like months at a time and just give out records, right?
Hmm.
They really were just totally like, we're just doing it because we're maniacs kind of thing. And so they, the way they sounded was kind of like if, I don't know, Joey, how would you describe the New Flesh? Because you're better at some of these noise rock references than I
I
am.
mean, very heavy on the like No Trend and Flipper kind of vein of just like one punishing simplistic riff that just gets like beaten into your head over and over and over again until it like becomes something almost like psychedelic and hypnotic.
You got to keep going.
That's, I mean, I feel that's the best way to put it. It's, to me, it is like, that is the, I guess what I call like orthodox noise rock, or like the approach that I think is like the best to the style. It's just kind of a way of doing like industrial noise, like SPK or Throbbing Gristle, but like with guitars instead of like sheet metal and synthesizers. It's just about creating this like hypnotic driving force that just keeps moving forward and forward and forward, and like by the time it's done, like the song was 7 minutes, but you're like, it's over.
Hmm.
And
But
we
also at other
applied
times the
that.
song keeps going, and you're like, oh fuck, it's still the same song.
Well, and then we applied that to, I think one of the last songs that we picked, which I thought worked really well for us, is SSD's How Much Art.
Yeah.
And for anybody that's familiar with that SSD, particularly that record, they were kind of a first wave straight edge hardcore band. And most of that
The first.
record, what's that?
So they were the first, right? Minor Threat wrote the song Straight Edge, and
Yeah, that's
SSD
a good
was the
point.
first,
Yeah.
like claiming we are straight edge.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And it's funny, Discord put out or put out that record, even though all they did was like
Put their
slap
name
their
on it.
name
Yeah.
on it. Yeah. But that record, for the most part, it's, like, and this is, I mean this in a good way. It's kind of like by the numbers hardcore of, the Northeast, particularly Boston of that time. But there's one song on there that sounds almost nothing like that record, which is How Much Art. And I grew up listening to that song, and I was like, this song is just the weirdest thing on this record. And then obviously you can connect the dots with like Flipper or No Trend, or something
So
like
it's
that.
fun. Funny thing about that is How Much Art wasn't really meant to be like those. It's not like Siege, like Grim Reaper, which was like Robert. Met Robert once and from Siege, and he told me like, oh, Flipper is like my favorite band. It wasn't like that. They did that song because they fucking hated bands like that.
Mm.
They hated like art bands, and there were a lot of like
Yeah.
art bands around Boston at that time. And so they wrote that song to like make fun of those bands. There's actually a live recording of Flipper playing in Boston around, I want to say like 82 or 83, where you hear Springer get up on stage and take the mic while they're playing like I Saw You Shine for 13 minutes, and he just starts shouting, how much art can you take?
Oh,
So
I've
like
never,
they were
that's
they were
awesome.
like an anti-art band. They were very thoroughly like, they did not like that stuff. So the fact that we took that song and turned it into like what, like 6-7 minutes.
We doubled it.
I think it's
Yeah.
more.
Yeah,
It's like 8.
we basically, like, to me, I thought that was a really funny way of saying like, we love your band, we love this song, but also you're wrong.
We re-artified it.
Now it's
Yeah.
Sean and Rob. You're doing the more the spoken word on that stuff, right?
No,
On
that's
that track.
actually that's myself, Joey, and Matt. So we
Oh,
triple
okay.
teamed these vocals. which I thought was super interesting because one of the things that like it was originally Matt and I were sort of trading off vocals. And then, I think Joey, you may have had the ideas like, why don't I do some like really like just whispery vocals?
Yeah.
And it ended up working out great because it's Joey's vocals come in and Joey, their vocals just sound like it is whispered, but it's like also in your face. And
Well,
it's just
remember when we
really,
brought it to Barrett to mix, he had like pre-mixed before we arrived at his studio, and his ear had just like naturally gone to Joey's vocals as the lead vocal. So he had mixed it as though those were the lead vocals, although the
Oh,
original
funny.
intent was to have like this kind of
Matt.
undertone. Yeah,
Yeah.
Matt, like
Matt was
so
supposed to
like
have the lead on that one. Yeah.
Barrett flipped all of the vocals around, and we are like, this is kind of works this way. We really liked it, so we
yeah.
kept it.
And that actually is a good segue really quickly to working with Barrett Jones. And I think that I mean, Jay had tracked these covers, but Barrett, he actually, when Steve had passed, we weren't really quite sure what we were going to do when Steve Albini passed. And so I was in, I was like, well, like we were kind of thinking about using Barrett to actually mix Deceiver Mirror before we ended up with Steve Albini. And it ended up working out with Steve originally. And then when it couldn't happen, we went back to Barrett and we were like, would you want to mix the record again? And then we were like, our friends in the Go to Beds convinced us to keep it at Electrical Audio. I'm glad we did. But Barrett Jones, just so for those who don't know, he's mostly known for recording the first Foo Fighters record and a
Right.
lot of early Nirvana B-sides. He was the front of house for, I want to say, the first leg of the Nevermind tour in the US, like right before they popped off, maybe Europe. Um, but Rob and I really liked his work because he recorded the first Carp record. He recorded the first Pussy Galore 7-inch, I believe.
Mm.
He did there's a really good band on Discord from the early 90s called Autoclave. And
Yeah.
which is,
Very Timmy.
yeah. And he recorded all of that stuff. And I really love that stuff. And so just on an off chance, I asked Barrett, I was like, look, I know you didn't get a chance to do Deceiver Mirror, but would you want to do this? And he instantly was on board and he actually said, this is great because I haven't recorded stuff like that or I haven't mixed stuff like this in a long time. I think he had been kind of just doing not as abrasive stuff, and so this brought him back to kind of that world. So Rob and I flew out to Seattle. We went to his studio and we got to sit there and mix with Barrett Jones. Now, the fun thing that's on this record is there is a amp called the gas can. Now, that gas can amp is literally a gas can. And it's basically a sort of like combo amp. It has this gnarly sound, and what it's mostly known for is there's the last song on the first Foo Fighters record is called Exhausted. And it's even if you don't like the Foo Fighters, which I'm sure
That's how I
most
feel after listening to the Foo Fighters.
yeah, Exhausted, right. But that song is completely different than everything else on the record, and it's a totally gnarly song. Like it's just like it almost sounds like Flipper or something. It's slow,
It's been years
sludgy.
since I've heard that. Yeah. I remember
It's
hearing it
it's
at the
nothing
time.
else like on their record. And so Barrett showed us the gas can, and we were like, could we use this for an overdub? So
Obviously, you're gonna
Rob,
use the gas can.
Rob was able to use that,
Yeah.
and Rob was able to use. Didn't you use Chris Novoselic's rat
Yeah.
pedal?
Yeah, so Barrett, he said he was looking for pedals to run through, and he was like, "Well, I found this old rat. I'm pretty sure this is what Chris Novoselic brought and left the first time he ever came here." So we went through Chris Novoselic's rat and like some other pedal to get a broken up guitar sound, and we slapped an overdub onto Doubts using the
Yeah.
gas can.
But it was
Nice.
an honor to work with Barrett, and I think the record sounds like he was because I was like, look, just go for it. You know what I mean? Like he had said I hadn't done stuff like this in a while, and I said, well, like just go for it. And I think the results kind of show for itself. But going back to Jay really quick, working with Jay was also just that was a dream. It was being in that studio and like working with Jay and just I mean, Rob, you've had the pleasure to work with them a
Yeah, I've
times and,
recorded with
and
him a few
Matt too,
times.
and I think we all were in that studio. It was like, it felt like a sacred space, you know what I mean? And very approachable guy, very nice. I mean, I punished him with a lot of questions at the tail end of our session, and he was very gracious, answering some very sort of obscure Jawbox questions. But no, it was so that whole experience, that studio experience really set the tone for what became the tour. And I think, as you kind of probably know with this interview, the last hour, I've never been in a band like this where we get along super well. We really like respect each other as musicians, and it was just an honor to like work with everybody here. I still think of like the what we did in the last year, how we pulled this off, and if it wasn't for everybody
Well,
here, it wouldn't have happened, and including you, Dom, because you booked that Ithaca show for us. And I just want to say, like on the record, personally, so everybody knows, like how awesome that was and how good of a guy you are, Dom. And thank you for doing that because that show we didn't know what to expect. And it was
yeah,
cool to play
neither
for
did
like,
I. But I'm like, we're
it
gonna.
was,
If you guys are willing to come here, you're gonna come. So I
well, we
had
played for like what we
autonomy to
really
set that up.
liked.
I'm like, we're gonna do it.
Well, what we really liked, and this happened in Delaware as well, is we played for like young kids, and
Well,
that was,
yeah, that's one of these towns where you're going to get a lot of people that don't really know. Some people that will know, be informed about what you're trying to do and have context, and others don't. But they're open-minded here. They're just going to come out because there's not that many things going on. So like, oh, what's happening? Like, yeah, I'll check this out. Like, you're going to win people over that way because they're just being open-minded to come see something they don't understand or maybe don't fully understand.
yeah,
So
I think that we enjoyed like because we've all have played to sort of like scenes, you know what I
yeah,
mean, that we've all been involved with, and we've all done it. And you've done it, we've all done it. And at some point, you're like, okay, yeah, that's fine, or it's just not even that enjoyable. But when you're playing to like, people that would never approach your music normally,
yeah,
or just young people that are like getting their footing with maybe more experimental music, or more sort of just like left field music.
yeah.
It's cool to like to be a
It can
part of
be a
that. Or
foundational point for some people. Like when
sure.
they're really impressionable, they're looking for something different. If they see the right thing at the right time, it can really send them in that direction. Like all of us have had as kids at some point, It was very different years ago, but at some point you heard or saw something that really changed your trajectory. And so you're giving that opportunity to, play in front of some kids who are looking for that. Maybe they don't find it that night, but maybe it starts them on that path.
And I think that really kind of, I know we gotta end this soon, but one of the things I'll say, and this is the first real sort of show we did was at Rhizome.
Hmm.
And I will kind of let Joey take over this story, but we were outside sort of hanging out. There was this young kid. It was, I think, no more than like 14 or 15. Was like just kind of hanging out with us, and we were like, he was like, I really liked you guys. He ended up buying a record and not watching any of the other bands because I think he went for the other bands, but hung out with us. And Joey, you go ahead with this. It's because it's your.
Yeah. So he I love this. He was saying like he wanted to get into more stuff like that, and I was like, all right, well, let's see what we can do. So I grabbed.
The
I
list.
think, was it on a set list? I think it might have been
It
on a set.
was
Yeah,
the
it's on the
back
back
of a
of the
set
set
list.
list.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll have to find a picture of this. Send me a picture of this so I can insert
will.
it, Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
I
know,
think you
actually, I don't know
did,
that
but
it was a set list because all the set lists had Calvin pissing on Alec Mackay on the back, on the Minor Threat 7-inch. So I think it was something else. I don't remember what it was, but maybe it was a merch sheet or something. Whatever. Anyway, so Sean and I came up with what we titled the Noise Rock Crash Course, and we just like off the top of our heads, just like rattle off like every fucking
it's
thing we
the
could
new
think
Nurse with
of.
Wound list. That's it.
From
Yeah.
the obvious like Flipper and No Trend to more obscure Japanese stuff like Duke 19 or
High Rise.
even some like British stuff like Rima Rima, like stuff that kind of preceded it. Talked to some no wave, weird like psych noise, and then I kind of stuck it in there. Only Theater of Pain by Christian Death, which if you listen to Falcone's playing, like, and the interviews that like they've given, like they were like all we were doing was like listening to like No New York and Throbbing Gristle, and like you can hear it in their playing. So just stuff like that, and then of course like the big three like predecessors, which would be White Light, White Heat by Velvet Underground, Plastic Ono Band, the Yoko version, and then Funhouse by the Stooges. And it was just this like we filled the entire 8.5 by 11 page, top to bottom, side to side, with just like everything we could think of, and just
what a document to do that.
Find all this shit, listen to it, and hopefully it doesn't ruin your life.
Hopefully he didn't lose it. Holy shit. I mean, like that's a lot of years of listening just given to him. Like,
So oddly, like literally the week after tour ended, Emily Robb was in town. She'd played with us in Philly. So she was actually in town and was playing at Rhizome again. So I went to go hang out with Emily Robb and see her play. And lo and behold, that kid was doing door at Rhizome and was like, he was like, I'm going to start putting out cassettes. I'm going to like, and we heard some of his music. It's great. And like, to your point earlier, Dom, like that, yeah, like we didn't have a big, long career as a band. But I think like if we can like help a kid like that get into like some really cool music or just stuff that he wouldn't normally approach, I think we did our job as not only like a band, but as like flag bearers of weird music. Like I think that's kind of the whole point in all this. Like the whole music industry is garbage, right? It's terrible. And all facets of it are. Every facet of it is. But that's the one thing that's awesome. When you do that, it makes all of that bullshit that you have to deal with. And we've all dealt with it, from the drama to the industry side of it, to just weird personalities, to just not even wanting to do this anymore. But that one thing is like makes it worth it, where it's like all the stuff that we dealt with, all the stuff that like is going on in your life. If that kid buys one of those records or like listens to one of those records, puts out their own stuff, it's totally worth it, So
that, or when you get to ruin someone's night by subjecting them to your art, that also makes it worth it.
Memorable.
No, we're very I'm very, and I think we all are just very honored that we were able to like do this and like make both of these records happen, because without you, Dom, without anybody here in this panel, none of this would have happened. And the fact that all of us were able to do this in the span of a year. I mean, some of this stuff was obviously recorded a few years ago, but we were able to compact 2 records in a year.
Yeah,
it's bonkers.
Making up for lost time.
And
tape. Yeah, and a tape.
And a tape.
I guess that's the last thing we got to talk about.
Which quick. I saw on Sounddome. Thank you very much.
I can't believe it's on Sounddome. So to the Dom watchers here, like I know a lot of you shop on Sounddome, so please buy it from Sounddome. But
that's a live tape from the tour, correct?
From the Delaware
last
show.
Year's tour.
Joey kind of masterminded that. Joey, I don't know if you want to
I
quickly
oh yeah,
go
okay.
into.
So I brought my Zoom recorder on tour because I wanted to try to record all the sets I could, but like I don't know, I kind of forgot most nights. So the two nights we got were I think we just got two. One was the Ithaca show, and that one was cool. It was good, but then I did the Delaware one. And the Delaware one is at this spot called Newark Bike Project. Um, friend Robbie, who plays bass in the other band that Rob and I are doing, Crimson Behelit, he is one of the people who runs it, and he started booking like DIY punk shows there, which is really cool because it's like a spot in a fucking strip mall with like a movie theater next door and like a Chinese takeout place and like a pizza spot. I think there's like a Subway and like a Goodwill. It's just like giant parking lot right on the main strip in a college town. So like people just wander right in.
Mhm.
And anyway, though, it's like a giant concrete hallway, super fucking tall ceiling. I feel it's like a 2-story ceiling. So I put my Zoom recorder just like in the back of the like towards the door, and we just played the set and we listened to it, and it just sounded like Nightmare.
It sounded insane.
Yeah, so we were like, I think this is the one. Sean was like, okay, well, call this whatever you want. You can do whatever art you want and whatever packaging. And I was like, I think Terrence is not going to like me after this. So we kind of like we're shooting ideas back and forth, and then I like some I don't know what it was, but I realized I was like, oh, this is the perfect title. It's a Will Shatter Rides Again, which is a like triple play, right? So you've got the reference to Flipper Will Shatter, but then the title is a reference to Darby Crash Rides Again by Poison Idea, which is then a reference to the Germs.
Mhm.
So you've got like this weird postmodern, like meta, like concept title and art. So it's going to be in a little rave case. I'm putting together a big ass booklet for it that Terrence has to assemble, and doing a sticker, and he's charging $20 for it. And if people want to spend $20 on a dumb tape, then
That's
great.
that's four Fugazis. So that's four
Probably.
Fugazis.
How many tapes was it? Like 100?
It's 100 copies, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
100, yeah, and it's
So you can
we
get
also
that
got
from only
go ahead.
that's available in multiple places through your Bandcamp or whatever you
Yeah,
order.
it's gonna Discord. We'll be carrying it.
Uh,
Obviously, Sound Sorry State will also be carrying
Yep.
it. And a few other distros. We're working on some other Japanese distros. But speaking of Japan, real quick, we got Shige of Tokyo Noise Room or Noise Room in Tokyo, who is a master legend with bands, Japanese hardcore bands like Death Side, Lip Cream, who we're all like, I know myself, Joey, and Rob, we all dabble in Japanese hardcore, especially the more
Anyone who
sort of
has good taste in hardcore
yeah,
likes the
essentially.
shit that
Yeah.
came out of Japan.
Yep,
And it's
yep.
still
And
coming out.
look, the Comes record, that 12-inch, unreal. One of the best like punk records of all time. But Shige from Noise Room, I cold emailed him and kind of explained like, look, I know we're not normally the kind of band that you would work with. Would you do it? And Shige immediately was like, yes, I'm in. Like Joey was on all those emails. Shige was very
was he aware of the
complimentary of
band
us.
already, or he just heard it and liked it?
He just heard it and liked it.
Nice.
He just was really into it, you know?
Yeah, he was just stoked at like how high energy it was. That was
Yeah.
I feel as if I remember that being like that's the one comment I remember was he was just like, this is so like high energy and intense.
You know, we're like pulling references from stuff that I know that he's aware of, like stuff like just a lot of those hardcore bands we just talked about, but also like Hijikaiden, you know, which is a big influence for like all of
Mhm.
us, you know, or like even Masana, you know what I mean? Like stuff
Yeah.
like that was, and I think that cassette really encapsulates sort of the Japanese noise side of us, you know. And Shige did a really good job of like kind of just making everything so blown out, but also very listenable. If that makes sense. And that we were totally on
Holy shit,
fire
so
that
do
night
I.
because we were the night prior, our set got rained out and we almost destroyed all of our equipment. And so we were very much not in a good mood, and we just kind of obliterated that place. And it was probably one of the best shows that I've ever played. I don't know if
Hmm.
anybody else would agree, but it was just such a fun show. So the
Mhm.
fact that Joey you captured it
Good
was
capture.
really cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let's say here. So we're talking
Yeah.
about tape, but the main record coming out is this new release, which is due what, end of May, I
The
believe it is.
22nd
May
of May.
22nd.
Yep.
So
Yep.
this is a new LP, but it's the covers, the outtakes, the unreleased music, and
Yeah, you're very, very
and
proud
that's
of
gonna be on
this.
Reptillion again.
Reptilian expert work.
All right.
It's a co-release between them. We're very excited because it's also going to have some really good Japanese distribution. Which the last thing I'll say is that we plan to tour Japan next year.
Yeah,
That's
that's
stuff that
a
we
little
got to like
thread I've
figure
heard
out.
about. Okay.
Yeah, but like I think now that we've got good Japanese distribution, it sounds like it'll happen for real. It's a dream of mine. I know it's a dream for Joey, and I think a dream for all of us. Good old Jake here has played Japan before with
Unfortunately, Narita from High Rise has been dead for like 3 years, so we
yeah, we
don't get to play with
can't
High Rise.
yeah, we can't play with High Rise.
Have to
But
make
maybe
that
we could play with
concession.
Masana. That would be Masana would be cool to play with.
Well, if he comes out of retirement again, I got to see him come out of retirement for
Yeah,
three and a
yeah, you
half,
got to
3.5
got to
fucking
see
minutes. One of the
yeah, I
best
was
sets
gonna
I've seen
say
in
I
my
was
entire life.
Well, I
yeah,
hope
I
you
watched
wrap it
that
into
set.
some other shows, though. I just want to say for people who haven't seen you, I mean, you only did a few shows aside from what you did many years ago. It's a massively, impactful sound. But what's so cool is just how, the noise and everything is harnessed into sort of like there's melody there. This is not just like chaos. It's chaotic, but it's harnessed in a way that makes it sort of like almost tuneful, which is what is the biggest compliment or the biggest sort of like achievement I think for me, which is just getting best of both worlds, just a massively big sound, noise, harshness, but also like, oh, like there's an aspect of a hook there. And now you're doing
Yeah.
some covers, which it's sort of like is the sort of like complement to that in a sense.
Yeah, and it's really a love letter, I think, to like the bands that Rob and I like, and I know we're about to wrap up, but I just want to take this moment because every band that I really love, they always promote bands that they're into. So I just want to list off really quick some really good bands that people should be listening to right now:
Go
Ox
for it.
Run, Ox Run, Gloop,
Oh, Gloop I've seen.
Crimson
Gloop
Baylet.
came here. Yeah.
Yeah, great band. Crimson Baylet, new band. Bloated Subhumans, great band. Um, you know, uh, uh, Jake, the
Secret
electronic
Wilderness.
project, Secret Wilderness, you're doing. It's really important, I think, for all of us to, since this is kind of our last hurrah, to like push bands that we really like and we think are good. Because especially
Foreign
Joey and I
Body,
were, what's that?
Foreign Body.
Foreign Body, yes, is the probably the best East Coast noise rock band going, and their new record is unbelievably good. Foreign Body, I
There's an
think it comes
older
out on.
band called Foreign Body, is there not? I mean, that's probably
I
They're
mean,
from
look, every
from
band.
New York.
What's
okay.
that?
Oh,
Yeah, they're from.
they're from New York.
Yeah, they're
They
from
got
New York.
they got signed to Brutal Panda. Thomas told me that they're stoked to be on a label like that so they can infiltrate false noise rock and make people listen to like real like degenerate shit. So
Yeah, they're a great band. They are like Joey kind of like introduced us to them, and they're just great people. They really seem to like Birth Defects, which is I was surprised about, but we got along really great when we played with them in New York, and then when they played in Baltimore with Bloated Subhumans. Just great band. So those bands I would say definitely check out. I mean, this is our last hurrah, so I would much rather spend like time like talking about like bands that like I think are worth
Nice.
listening to,
yeah, like
So
Crimson Behelet's the best hardcore band in America.
they're Crimson, like I'm not even like I know that that's a Joey's making a joke. Crimson Baylet is probably the one of the most impressive things I've seen in a very long time. And I'm not saying that because Rob and Joe are here. I was floored. If anybody watching this is into like Void or like stuff like
Sure.
United Mutation or just like
Septic
in
Death,
yeah, like stuff and
Oro.
but totally influenced by like again sort of the idea of birth defects, like wild noise. The Crimson Bailet is one of the best things that I've seen in a long time, and I mean that sincerely. So,
Well,
you
I'll
know,
mention one I've been listening to today. The drummer in my band gave me as a gift this record. I had it for a few months, but today I was just finally diving into it. One Leg, One Eye. It's an Irish. I think it's really the project is related to the band Lankum, which I'm not so into, but it's like a dark drone folk sort of like gothic
mm,
sort of mix of things.
Hmm.
Heavy R on the drone, and so he gave this to me, and I didn't know what it was, and you know. I've just been getting into it now, and one of those things that I sort of like put aside. And now that he was like, "You're gonna really like it. Like you spend some time with it. It's gonna take time to get through it." And Trey, I'm finally listening to it. It was a good gift. One Leg, One Eye. It's called "And Take the Black Worm with Me."
I'll
It's from
check it out.
2022.
Yeah.
2022 on the Nia label from Ireland. So
Is there any Jake, Matt, Ian? Is there any bands that you guys want to quickly shout out?
I've been listening to this a new DC shoegaze band called Guttered. But
Oh yeah, I've heard about them. Yeah.
they're really cool. They got written up by one of the former Washington Post writers, and it caught my eye. I guess they played Rhizome recently, but their EP, I think they just put out like an EP on Bandcamp, but it's really cool. And then I've been listening to, I don't know where this fits in with noise, but I've been listening to the new Mary Lattimore and Juliana Barwick
Oh
record
yeah.
a
I,
ton.
Yeah.
It's just,
I got to hear
it's
that
good
still.
for chaotic times, like when I'm not listening to chaotic music.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been a little all over the place. Mandy, Indiana just put out a new album that I don't think it's as good as their other ones, but it's all right. Uh, um, Speaking of Irish bands, like I've just been diving headfirst into like Gila Band recently.
Oh wow, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
that's a great one.
Yeah, those are the two that I've been listening to most recently. But I'm gonna listen to One Leg, One Eye as soon as we're off this call.
Yeah, the cover is pretty awesome too.
Yeah. No, you started saying like noise and drone and experimental folk, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna look that up right now.
Yeah, check it out.
Matt, is there anything you want to quickly shout out?
Shout out.
Matt thinks there
Everything.
should be more hecklers at shows.
Oh God.
Hell yeah.
I hope
No,
nobody
no,
heckled in Ithaca. I don't think anyone did.
no. Things I've been listening to. Everything's defunct now. I like that Letitia Skull Drawing record a lot. On Iron Lung.
Yeah.
I
I
think
know that record.
is great. There's this band. I don't think Joey likes them too much, but I love Black Button, and they have like an EP called Eternal Life that I think is fucking great. It's the kid that was in another band called Hologram that was
Mhm.
also on Iron Lung Records. I think it's great. They're from Richmond. They just
Nice.
played. They just played recently. That's about it.
Rob, anything in
Um, I don't know. It's not too much new stuff that I've been listening to lately, honestly. I've been looking for new things to pick up. I did like that Quebec band that everybody's talking about.
Oh,
Like
Engine de Poitrine.
that's it, yeah. I like those songs are really fucking catchy, and I don't know how. But I also just love the weirdness of it and the instrumentation, like doing microtonal stuff is super cool.
What's that
Uh,
band called? I haven't heard
let
that
Ian
yet.
say.
Engine de Poitrine. There, you have you not been on the internet the past like month or two?
No.
Yeah, they're like
No.
They
super
did a
hype.
KEXP show, and it's
Their records
they
go
sh
secondhand for like over $1,000, which is fucking absurd.
You see that
And
sometimes with new stuff now. Yeah, like I don't
yeah,
get that. The demand all of a sudden shoots up and people pay it and they don't want to miss it. I don't know, but okay.
the I guess the album was what, a few years old?
The
So
new
they're
ones
all,
just came out, the volume
oh,
two. So,
yeah,
but the other one is a couple years old or something. They already done like 10 presses of it. It's always sold out.
yeah.
And then I tried to get tickets to the DC show that's coming in September, and it sold out like in
Oh
less than a
shit.
minute. It's just
I
like
wonder if I have
I,
seen this though.
I
It
mean, I
might
will
be
say
one of
not
the
from a
cool.
not from a musical level, but I think Dom, if you're familiar with any of the late '90s, early 2000s Load Records
Sure.
gimmick bands,
Gimmick bands, like
that'll
who?
give you an
For
idea, like
Oh,
kind
they
of like
got
white,
costumes and body paint and
ah,
stuff. It's
yeah,
wild.
Oh
okay.
yeah, yeah. They have
Oh,
these
people
paper
love that.
mache
They
like
love that.
masks that are like huge heads, and it's all polka dot, and
yeah,
they all
it's
they don't really talk.
They already have a huge touring budget, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
I would
it
love to see them, but it looks like I have to wait till the hype dies down.
it might be one of the coolest like live uses of a looper that I've seen.
Oh, really?
Because it's not just like, oh, 16 beats in a row and that's the loop and we're going to play over that. He's doing a loop that then he starts riffing over and then the riff changes and that completely changes the whole feel of the song, even though it's the same loop playing.
Yeah.
And they sort of layer sequentially and it's,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Shit, I don't know anything, I guess. I'll have to check that out.
I've been too
well,
busy
Well,
watching anime to listen to new music. So
that there you go. That's I'm glad we got an anime reference in there.
What
there
have you
we
been
go.
watching, Joey?
oh, this and that. I've been making a lot of people watch Urtsuki Doji, Legend of the
Wow.
Overfiend, which is the movie that like made parents afraid of anime in America because it's the one that popularized like tentacle shit. And it's just like an hour. It's like 2 hours of people getting like ripped in half and like heads blowing up and like tentacle fucking and just like nightmare shit. It's great. It fucking rules. It's so sick. That's just one, but I had to. I didn't have to. Crimson Behelit. I put together a backdrop video that is. I got it up to 12 and a half minutes of just like quick cuts of like ultra violence from anime from the 80s and 90s. I have no idea. It's got to have like hundreds of cuts in it. Um, and so I was just like fucking poring over shit like Guyver Bio Boosted Armor and Evangelion and Berserk and Ghost in the Shell and Kite and Cyber City 08008 and I could just go on for fucking ever. But I have like that is like all I have immersed myself in for the past like month.
Dom, see how dynamic this band is? We've got
It's,
all this, and then the Master
yeah.
Weep, the
We have to
master.
have
Oh
a
yeah,
whole anime
you
discussion.
get the surprise here, Dom. So that
I'm
is we're
seeing a
act,
crass or
yeah.
birth
So
effects
that's
related. What is it?
we're making very limited tote bags. There's only 20 in
Oh,
existence, and so the first 20 people that order the record, like first 10 people either from Reptillian you can order from or export work, you'll get a free tote bag with the OB version of the record.
nice.
And we made stickers, 5 stickers representing the covers where and I think I've shown some of these to you, Dom.
I
Um,
think you sent me a few things I didn't know what to make of. I'm like, I guess I'll figure that out on my own. Or
yeah, so
yeah.
we took album covers of every
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
thing
yeah.
cover we did and made it into
Yeah.
birth defects.
That's cool. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
so
Love
that
letter.
comes with the record. So, but
Well, yeah,
yeah,
so I'll do all the linky thing below. People want to pre-order the record, and by the time this comes out, I'm sure that'll be up and live. May 22nd, it looks like, as I see your note here. Fictional Days by Birth Effects. And
yeah.
of
Thank you,
course, Deceiver
Dom.
Mirror is available
Yeah, it's
for those who didn't miss
available
that last
and
year.
In
but
dumpsters
thank you,
near
Dom.
you.
What's that?
Said available in dumpsters near you.
Oh yeah. You
Wherever
can
you get
buy
your
it
While
records, whether
supplies
it's a
wherever.
last.
dumpster or not.
But no, again,
Yours.
Dom, thank you for all your support. Seriously, it means
Hey,
a lot
I'm
to
honored
us.
you all
And
made the time to come to
yeah, no,
look at that.
you and I have talked before. Thank you for booking us, and then just all the support that
Consider
you've
it
done.
again. I know it's a lot to wrangle, but
But
if you're gonna go to
hey, I hope,
Japan,
yeah.
come
Well,
on.
look, I
You
hope
should
this
at
makes
least
up
go to
for
the West Coast, stop over there, do a few shows, then go
Well,
to,
here's what I will say, and I think everybody here will agree. We will do the only time we'll do an American show, and I mean this sincerely, if it's a benefit that we really believe in.
Mhm.
And I'm being 100% sincere. If it's a benefit that we believe in as a group, that works for us. I don't think I don't think I want to make any kind of money off of this band anymore. Not that we've ever
Not
made
that we
money.
made any money.
Not that we ever made money. But
tell me
like
about
I don't
this.
I
What
don't
money
think
did
we,
you make, Sean?
I don't know. I feel like I watch Rob walking out of those shows with giant sacks of dollar bills
big
on.
stacks of
No,
cash.
but you know what I mean. I don't think that we want to play shows just to play shows in America. So it would have to be something that is meaningful
Something
to
special.
us,
All right.
that we could
Noted.
help, that we would be able to help somebody or something. So very
Okay,
very
for everyone.
Fugazi of us, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Although you have t-shirts, so, and tote bags, so
yeah, capitalism. It's gonna destroy us all. Please.
Well, cheers, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Dom.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Dom.
Thanks,
having
Dom.
us.
I'm happy to
Thanks,
do it.
Dom.
Happy to do this with you guys.
Thank you,
And
Tell
Dom.
Donna I said hi.
order the records, people,
All right.
and the tape. It's a triple
And the tape.
tribute there.
Tape. Yes.
And the 7 inches that haven't sold out.
Yeah. Buy
Donna.
all of our merch, please. Capitalism. Let's get those money bags so Rob could carry a sack of the $sign bag. You know who owns the copyright of the $sign bag? Gene Simmons.
Of course. Who else would it be?
Yeah.
There is a heart in the picture. Inside the house is a room. Once around it, it's a short circuit. When times are hard, I think about you. When times are hard, I think about you. Four walls, one has a window, one has a door. Would you go out of? Just thought you'd like to know. I don't think you're listening. I don't think you're listening. I don't think you're listening. I think I'll tell you again. This clock shows only mythical lies. These books show only fictional things. One system is only as good as another. When times are hard, I think about you. When times are hard, I think about you. For us, one has a window, one has a door, which you roll out of. Just thought you'd like to know. I don't think you're listening. I don't think you're listening. I don't think you're listening. I think I'll tell you again. to